Guru Nation, thank you so much for watching and listening. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, share. Listen, some podcasts are super important for a number of reasons. I always try to create content that's going to be helpful to people, and I understand that not all of them always are for everyone, but I think this one will resonate with a large cohort of the audience who have been struggling to find employment in this tough job market. Like Alicia, outside of sites and some tech vendors and some biotechs, really there's a huge like freeze slash outsourcing movement, especially at the CRO level, which I'm assuming a lot of the open to work group that you founded on LinkedIn, you'll have members, I would guess the majority from CROs. But
Mhm.
Alicia, I think what you're doing is so important. You're someone who yourself is currently out of work.
Correct.
And I looked at your LinkedIn and I don't understand why. So I hope it doesn't last long for you. I don't see why it would. You have had, and Alicia's LinkedIn's underneath, by the way, the video and in the show notes. Senior
Okay.
management ClinOps at Slope, which is one of the big vendors in the space. A clinical trial manager at a biotech, a director of ClinOps, looks like a device company, a director of ClinOps at what was this CPR Therapeutics
Device. Yeah, med tech.
device.
Mhm.
You've done some stuff at colleges. You've done things before that at a site.
Mhm.
Oculus VR. You've done like you are. If I looked at your profile, and I'm being serious, Alicia, I would say this person should have no issues finding employment. This is a generalist. This is what I'm encourage people to do. Like become multifaceted, find different verticals within this space, kind of have cross functionality, be recession proof, and you're having issues.
I am, yes, among many, many others, which is the catalyst for why we created the group just a few days ago, but already it's gaining a lot of traction because people really are coming through to support what the movement is about, which I can explain further. And I really, really appreciate that you reached out and offered to highlight this and showing
Of
the
course.
strong community in clinical research.
Of
Yeah.
course, we need like if Guru Nation, anybody watching, if you're gonna, I want people to benefit from this content. It's not about me, even though I am the person on the videos, but what I learned as I've gotten more mature is it really is about the community. It's not so much
Mhm.
about me. I'll get mine. I'm all right. And if I ever need help, hopefully I have permission to
You've helped
ask.
so
But
many others, of course. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's really the foundation of the research community and the clinical research community. I mean, what we do is collaborate, share best practices, right? We are typically the first companies out here that are embracing, right? Progressive culture, progressive ideology in our culture, inclusive workplaces, right?
yep.
We do so much in reaching out to the community. I mean, what we do is because of our love of humanity, right? So I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, okay, I posted the other day, this is a silent layoffs are a silent crisis. I know that no one in our industry was fully talking about it the way that we are now, not because they don't care, but because we have trouble talking about layoffs. It's really uncomfortable, right? And so I met with a handful of people who are going through the same struggle. Boy, I've got the education, I've got the experience, I'm qualified. Why am I not even
Wait.
getting?
So first of all, how did you meet them? Because I think that part makes
Oh,
you unique already. Like a lot of people who are laid off, they're very insular in the house. They don't get out. Like, what do you mean by meet other people?
So mostly it's been through LinkedIn,
Okay.
actually,
Okay.
which is amazing, right? Because that's what this platform was meant for, collaboration on all fronts as it comes to our careers, right? But bringing community into that. So Keith Toad actually was rallying quite a few people. He was the first person that I found that said, you know what, heck on this. I'm going to talk about it. I know that people are suffering. And he created this post about what we go through when we become unemployed. Like that first 2 months where we're still hopeful, then we're headed into month 3 and we're kind of looking around. really starting to panic, right? Unemployment's about to run out, because as of right now, in many states, we're back down to, we can only get 6 months of unemployment. And so I'm reading through what he posted, and every single bullet point I was feeling in that exact order. And I thought, okay, I'm not alone. Wow, I'm not just over here losing my mind, not managing this well, right? And mentally. So he and I started having discussions, and then we started rallying some others into the discussions and just having, some honest dialogue about what we're feeling and how that kind of remain hopeful mindset is starting to kind of wear out, right? So that's where it started. But then, as I was saying, we're seeing a lot of educated and qualified people, candidates.
I'm
And
seeing PhDs in there. I'm scrolling through it now. You got 135 members in like 2 days or something.
2 days, yeah, yeah, which
Wow.
is great, right? And it'll continue growing. Yeah, and then we've also already got some hiring managers. As a matter of fact, Slope being one of those companies where one of the hiring managers was like, "Hey, I've got a huge network. This position is open, and I just want to put it out here for our unemployed colleagues to have, first shot at gaining an interview." I mean, so that's amazing, right?
Mm, mhm.
And it just really does show that broader sense of community and support. We don't just mean something as an employee while we're there, right? Like, we mean something as colleagues after we leave the company, prior to joining the company. And so I think that embodies that greater mindset of our research industry, right? And being inclusive and progressive and, really just genuinely caring about humanity and community. But anyhow, so when we got to the place where we're all talking about we're not even getting interviews, then the conversation shifted to the applicant tracking system and how hiring managers and recruiters lean on that for good reason. So as a hiring manager myself with lots of other responsibilities, I know how difficult it is to comb through resumes, read through them, schedule the interviews. You've got 3 hours in your morning to laser focus on your operational duties, and then you've got a break to jump on and do an interview. I mean, it's exhausting work, right?
Mhm,
And we
mhm.
can't get to all of the resumes. What do we get
I can
to?
tell even as a side owner, I mean, we hire one coordinator maybe every 4 or 5 months. It's exhausting. My wife helps me. She's the HR that goes through the resumes. We don't have a algorithm. It's just her and then me
Mhm.
and a few others. And then we do a first interview, then a group interview. It takes so much out of your day slash week. There's times where you do all this work, the candidate doesn't show up.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work, so I don't blame the bigger sites necessarily, and I think that's what you're saying too. You don't blame the bigger companies for using these systems, but it's causing unintended consequences
Mm-hmm.
in your opinion and in many others. And like, let's get back to the group, but in your case, because in the absence of data, we have anecdotes. Anecdotes are king right now. Like, why are you getting interviews?
No, I haven't been. So I've needed to shift my strategy. And things change so often, right, in the job search world. And we lose touch with the shifts in how we go about that, what the strategy is. Because while we're employed, we're not really thinking about, hey, what's the latest strategy? What are the latest okay things to do when job searching? So I've just started reaching out directly, which I feel very hesitant doing, again, because I know how busy hiring managers are. I've been there. I remember hiring for roles and sometimes thinking, oh, they've messaged me directly, right?
Yeah.
um, but in times of desperation, we're starting to do that. And then to sort of the idea surrounding those of us doing that for two reasons. A, we're either just really excited about the opportunity and we want to align ourselves, in front of a hiring manager, or B, sometimes it's misunderstood that, oh, we're just being lazy. We don't want to take the time to go through the regular process of submitting an application or and it's just very much not true, right? Especially for our colleagues who are now, 6 months plus as unemployed, funds are running out, right?
What
So we
about like
definitely see it.
internships or like going to small sites in the community just as a bridge, just to like not have a gap? What do you think about that? Just you personally. I know you can't speak for the group.
Yeah. So in terms of that, what I have found personally is that with our resume, we end up being overqualified at some of the smaller sites. So they
Yeah.
could definitely use coordinator support. So me having the operational, management experience, I'm immediately viewed as a flight risk,
Yeah.
right? And
I could
so
see that.
yeah.
I could see that.
And so that's sort of where, for me, being that mid-senior management, and again, people having more years of experience, I do still view myself as a baby in the industry because there's just so much to learn, thankfully. But yeah, so I'm kind of in that mid-senior management purgatory where there are other candidates who are also unemployed, but they've got 3, 5, 7 years more director or operations manager experience,
But have
right?
you done like source data review in your past or like QA, like, to help sites out maybe?
Yeah, I have. And so that's actually one of the things that I hadn't considered because I was reaching out to do some consulting work. And so I've jumped in and
Hmm.
I've helped a bit with some grant submissions, SBIRs,
Ah,
STTRs,
perfect.
one kind of things. And so that's been helpful. But no, I haven't reached out actually to anyone as far as the first data review or helping with QAs. But that's a really good idea.
Sites need it. I was just talking to Katie. Yes, Katie's my lead CRC. I'm talking to you like you know her, but um she's doing the QA now, but we're our site, small sites planning to ramp up and um we can use like QA people and we have Creo, so the QA person can be remote and
Mhm.
we typically offer that to our CRA Academy interns.
Excellent.
But if that's something you wanted to do, or someone like you, I mean, there are sites out there that would
Absolutely.
that
Yeah.
would hire you. What do you feel about like interning just to like have something going on the resume instead of getting paid or maybe taking a pay cut? I know it's temporary until you find something. Like,
Mhm.
what is your school of thought on that philosophy of interning?
So I love that idea again because any opportunity for learning is an amazing opportunity and you just can't put a number on that, right? You can't put a dollar on that. It's something that you can always carry with you. Now, the only challenge that I could see in that realm for myself personally, my schedule daily is up in the morning, doing all of my resumes, sending applications out, networking. Then I break for lunch. I take my pup for a long hike. And then I'm spending the rest of early afternoon through late evening, roughly 9 p.m., 9:30. And so if I were at this point, now that my unemployment has run out, I've run out of savings, I need to earn money. If
Yeah,
I were to do an internship at this point that's unpaid, it would end up, so many hours in a day sending resumes out, then door dashing to earn, at a paid job kind of thing. And then in the evenings when I get back from door dashing, that's when I spend about roughly saving open positions that I've found for going through the list to apply the next morning. So, however, so
wow.
that's just one of the time constraints that we think about then when we end up being unemployed. But I would say for those who are more recently unemployed, perhaps still getting unemployment or have some savings, internship opportunities, paid or not, again, you can't put a price on education.
Mm,
And secondly, it could potentially lead to a full-time role or even a part-time paid role, but you're
yeah.
also networking. So brilliant idea,
It
one that
also
I
makes the resume like freshens it up because
certainly,
recruiters love people currently working.
for
That's
sure.
that's their
Yep,
favorite candidate. I mean,
yep.
you know better than I do, and I've heard the same thing from recruiters. What about being a consultant? Just starting your own consulting group. You alluded to it earlier. I mean, no one needs to know if you're getting projects or not. They're just seeing that you're putting yourself out there. Ultimately, you would want to get projects because you want to
Mhm.
get paid, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of sites out there that probably would hire, my own included. We kind of need QA. There's only so much work like a CRA Academy intern can do
Mhm.
until you need like someone that you would pay. But the
Yeah.
risk is, like you said, a flight risk. It is a risk. But I
Mhm.
think the sites are willing to take that trade-off, provided that the pay is reasonable or on the lower end of fair. It's implied that, hey, you know what? I'll help you get started in your contracting stuff. I understand it's going to make you a more attractive candidate to others. That's fine, but maybe you can still keep this side gig even when you do get hired. I mean,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on this kind of stuff?
Yeah, so I think that that's a really great idea as well. I actually did reach out to some companies for about a month. I tried my hand at reaching out to some smaller biotechs and med techs and saying, hey, if you just have even a short amount of work that you need some support with, maybe resources are small, that kind of thing, I could just jump in quickly and, do a couple of small things as a consultant and then kind of jump back out. I didn't get too many hits on that in particular, but like I said, I did end up doing, helping with some grant work, setting up some other operational, clinical protocol type stuff. And yeah, as far as doing it while maintaining, a trajectory toward full-time work, I think that it's an excellent idea. Something that perhaps a lot of people haven't considered. And I think too, um, people are afraid to reach out. There's kind of this stigma, right, around being too pushy or especially coming across as desperate, right?
Mhm.
And which I think is kind of an overarching thing for people who are unemployed. Whereas when they're working, they'd feel perfectly confident reaching out to a company and saying, hey, here's what I can do for you. Are you interested? But then we kind of get this lack of confidence once we're unemployed. And then, like you said, recruiters love people who are already employed. What's that really all about, right? If we dig a little bit deeper into that, there's some stigma there, right?
Yeah,
There's
yes.
gotta be. We don't need to unpack it right now, but just keeping in mind that there's something going on there and it needs to change, right? Because the way that this is going to affect our economy, it's going to affect everyone eventually,
The
right? So we need,
stigma is, and this is the dangerous part of being unemployed. The longer you go, the more the perception is. Now, let's face it, it's sometimes fairly, but sometimes it's unfairly. The perception is you are unemployable. Like,
right.
there's got to be something wrong. There's no way this person hasn't gone to interviews in the last year,
Yeah.
and everybody said no. If
Yeah.
they're so amazing, how is it possible? That's the stigma.
Yes.
And like I said, for some people, it's valid.
Oh,
For
absolutely.
others,
Of course.
it's
Yeah.
not. But
Right.
humans, hiring managers, they got to make quick decisions. So they just put
Yeah.
everyone in that category. And it's kind of like,
Right.
hey,
Right.
guilty till proven innocent.
Yeah.
You prove me
Yeah.
wrong. You better do amazing in this interview if we call you in. And you're
Right.
saying the issue is you're not even getting that chance.
Totally, right? And so like this is where it comes back to the applicant tracking systems, right?
Mm.
So check it out on like this thought. So if we go back 25 years, okay, and the way that the industry was receiving resumes and interviewing, we were mailing them in. I mean, at best, we were like emailing them. And these ATS systems, like they didn't exist then, right?
Faxing them, remember?
Right. We were faxing them totally, right? So I could say that there was probably a bit more truth to, okay, this person's unemployable. This person, this is why no one's hiring them. Back then, when we know that our resume was definitely getting in front of a manager because we faxed it in, right?
Mhm.
Or mailed it. These days, we've got these ATS, right? Systems. Spammers are crawling, right? They're just overloading them. And while I love AI and I love what's going on with it, machine learning and all these algorithms and stuff, they are failing us, right? Because the bottom line at this point is we are employable. We are able to bring value. We did add value to the companies that we were laid off from. But plain and simple, our resumes are getting lost in the abyss of
Yeah.
these applicant tracking systems. And so,
Do you think there's a filter on there that's like already um pre-programmed saying if it's more than 6 months of unemployment, just filter out. Like, don't even look at it.
I've considered that. I hope not. I really
It
hope.
might, it's a strong
If there
possibility.
is, let's replace it with a filter where we can sort by unemployed
Yeah.
colleague first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is why I really
Um,
think like if I were in your shoes, I would set up a consulting firm, have a website, and just actually try to get clients, like whatever my skills are. But employers don't need to know that you may or may not have clients. They see that
yeah,
you're active.
yeah, yeah.
There's probably ways to game the ATS or whatever it's called. This is the first time I've like heard of the acronym. But is there like something philosophically you have against that, or because I know like the industry should not be this way, but it is. And it like in the face of that reality, I'm just putting myself in your shoes. Like I would be trying. I don't care. Like, if like people think, oh,
By
well,
hook or by crook.
yeah, I mean, isn't that, and you know what? Like I would
Um,
probably get a few clients here and there. Like it might not be ideal for what I want. It might not be enough for me to not DoorDash anymore, but
mhm.
at least I'm getting something to where I can hold on to and say, hey, you know what? Hiring manager, this is what I'm currently doing. Like I have XYZ, Yuma
Yeah.
Clinical Trials, I help them with their QA. And
Mhm.
that says something still.
Yeah, agreed. No, I think as long as it's remaining truthful, right,
Hmm.
overall,
Hmm.
then yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that the effort to show that we're remaining active in the industry and you know, again, showing that even if, just here and there or wherever a handful of things, we're continuing to add value and contribute where we can. Yeah, so I definitely support that for sure. I would not recommend someone putting on that they have this consulting company and then when interviewing say, "Oh yeah, I've had 10 big clients," kind of thing. I think
That's different. Yeah,
yeah, we're
that's
we're
wrong.
we're a small industry
It's
and
just to get your foot in the
yeah.
door,
But
and then
yeah,
when they
but yeah.
ask you, you be truthful. Like, well, I'm trying to get clients, but these are my skill sets.
Yeah.
And my ideal client, it would be truthful stuff, right? It's just to get your foot in the door to get to that interview. Because I feel like
Yeah.
you especially, I mean, I look at your LinkedIn. I'm not just saying this because you're here. Like, you should get a job. You should at least get interviews.
Yeah, yeah, I would think so. And then of course I had the plummet in self-confidence, and I even so
Yeah.
I sent my resume to my mentor, right? And I said, Is this just a bunch of baloney? Like, do I just think that I've done all of this? Can you go through this and can we just like talk about, am I really not as capable as I thought that so
Yeah.
even that was a thing that I struggled with, just going over my resume over and over and over again. And well, apparently I'm not that qualified. And I mean, really, if I was starting to believe that about myself,
I
of
mean, look at the
course,
stuff you've done. You've
yeah,
done management and training of CROs and third-party vendors, ensure sites are following SOPs,
mhm,
oversee the performance of CROs. You've been a coordinator. You have some grant writing experience, which a lot
lots
of
of
sites are not going to want, but there's companies that would want that.
the
So you have
startups.
everything. You have different verticals that you have like skill sets that you can draw upon for unique tasks. Like you would be the ideal candidate. I didn't plan on doing this prior to the podcast, but if you'd be interested, like I'd consider like at least having me and Katie talk to you about part-time QA remotely for our site.
Oh, I would love that. That would be Thank you.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean
for
this
sure.
sites need help. I
Definitely.
just talked
Yeah.
to her about it yesterday and our interns, I think our interns lose interest because it's tough to continue to do it without getting paid, but the reality is I would have hired like one of them at least part-time.
Mhm.
I just needed to reduce some risk from my like some upfront risk, right? To make
Yeah.
sure like are they actually going to do it? Um, but in your case, I think we could at least talk, and I do
Yeah.
think a lot of sites would be interested in other people who have certain skill sets. that can do that.
Yeah, yeah. And then too, in the interest of, and I very much appreciate that offer. And in
Unplanned
the interest
before. I know this was not my agenda to do that.
Yeah, yeah. But too, I also feel like I'm representing the group now,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So which is clinical research professionals, hashtag out of work. Yeah, I'd maybe even while of course I definitely need work, I also have the capability of driving and door dashing to earn money right now. I know a few folks who've lost their cars, so they can't do that. And so maybe those are the folks that might need that even more
yeah,
than I do right now, right?
yeah.
Which I hate to sound
Maybe
like
we
a
can post.
martyr. It's not anything like that,
Maybe we
but
can post the first, the first QA role. It's just gonna be a small, like couple hours a week, but 5 to 10 max, just QA, but it's enough to get started. And then if it helps somebody get their consulting company going,
yeah,
there's not enough. Look, we're in this
yeah,
weird world industry where I keep seeing the tale of two wolves behind you, but it's like the tale of two markets. Like you have a cohort of like unemployed, I can't find work, I'm door dashing, people are losing cars, to sites cannot find qualified people to do the task they need to do.
right, right. So this is something that I was really baffled by, and spending some time with a couple of months ago, right? And I'm still trying to figure out what is causing that? What really is happening? And I haven't gotten a handle on it yet.
I
Have
think it's a
you?
lack of, I have a theories. I mean, I at least kind of know where to dig, like which holes to maybe dig into, but I think sites don't post like what they need. Like my site, I need QA. We talk internally. Yeah, we do need it. Katie, can you still handle it? Yeah, I could still handle it, Dan. Until we start doing like 4 more visits a week, then I can't handle it. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, then I'll find like an intern. Okay. We're not posting our need anywhere. It's internal, right? And I think this conversation is happening at every site like mine across the country, maybe across the world. The tools that we're using are empowering the gig economy. Like
Yeah.
you can
Yes.
be in Pittsburgh and monitor, do QA on my site in Yuma. Our first employee was a contractor, Samantha Anderson from the CRC Academy. She
Mhm.
did all my stuff. She was a consultant. She did our data entry because we used Creo, so I was the coordinator. I did all the stuff in clinic. She entered it all remotely. She lives in Boston,
Mhm.
right? 6 months of doing that, she got a job at Dana Faber, and now
Nice.
she's like a director. And this was only 3 years
Love it.
ago. It's not like it was a decade ago. Things move
Yeah.
fast. So I think the disconnect is this is new, first of all. Like these tools are new. We barely understand them ourselves at the site. The world is flat, and the fact that you can help my site without leaving your house is a new concept. But
Yeah.
you don't know, and people in a lot of cohorts don't realize that there is this demand and the sites are not advertising it really. So it's like the sites
Mm.
are finding it locally because they haven't thought, well, we can actually do this remotely. So it's like
Yeah.
just grassroots. It hasn't become flat yet to where there are no borders. And I do think we're already there, but people have not thought about that yet because it's a paradigm that hasn't shifted. That's my
Yeah.
theory of what's going on.
That makes a lot of sense as you're going through that. Yeah. And definitely I can see the opportunity there. And where it now becomes appropriate to reach out to them
Yes.
directly and yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
I think
help
the
help them
worst thing
identify what, yeah,
Look, the worst thing job seekers can do, in my opinion, just like job recruiters have their rule, the worst candidate, someone not working. I mean, it may be unfair, but it's how they think for the most part.
yeah.
I think the worst place for somebody to look for a job are job boards,
Oh, awful.
especially now.
Absolutely.
Especially now.
Yes,
They were bad to look at even when everybody was getting hired.
absolutely.
But now, supply and demand. I think
Yeah.
the best place to be looking are local sites in your area, or now with LinkedIn, just
Right.
sites that you know that are using these tools that,
Yeah, even with LinkedIn, we need to be careful. They're starting to, pull in some of those characteristics of the larger job boards. One of the things that I've started doing is, we take a look at Fierce Biotech, right? We check out our publications.
I used to read that
Um,
a lot.
who just got funded last quarter, the
Ah,
quarter
yes,
before,
yes,
right? This kind of thing.
yes.
Looking at these, and again, I know that startup, it does take a certain set of skills, right? And it's definitely for the love of the game, right? Because biotech, medtech startups, it's a whole different animal. It's exciting, but there's not a lot of structure, a lot of swirling around and that kind of thing. So some of us, we love it, and some of us, it's just not the right fit.
Mm,
But definitely looking at the companies who've acquired recent funding, right? Looking at their
yep.
portfolio, what's in their pipeline kind of thing, and going directly to their websites and applying directly, or going to their LinkedIn profiles and following, reaching out, connecting, networking with their existing employees. In this market right now, that's going to be, I think, crucial in helping people also staying away from the job boards. No good.
And you know what's crazy is sites have been doing that to find studies. The same thing. Fierce Biotech, there's tools that we use called SimeWire, where it,
Hmm.
it alerts you when a biotech just got funding.
Yeah.
Like for us, that sales cycle is like a year out. Hey, I'm going to reach out to this biotech. I hope within the next year I get a feasibility survey. For a job
Mhm.
seeker, you don't have that kind of time. You need like weeks, months at the most.
Yeah.
So, Reid Hoffman, I saw this tweet yesterday Reid Hoffman, by the way, is the founder of LinkedIn, right?
Hmm.
This was just yesterday. The gig economy revolution is coming and it's bigger than you think. This is what he said, not me. But I don't disagree necessarily. And who am I to disagree with Reid Hoffman? Within a decade, 50% of the US population will be freelancers, right? But
Hmm.
here's the twist. They'll earn more than traditional employees.
Yes, for many reasons, actually.
Yep, and they go into it, specialized skills, global demand, premium rate, blah, blah, blah. But the point is, I think we're talking about the micro paradigm shift of sites using tech. The macro shift is this is happening everywhere. It's not just research. Like, depending on an employer for a job, unless that company keeps growing year over year. But when you
Hmm.
get to an employer where they stop growing, there's only two ways to keep profits going. It's either earn more, which they're not because they stopped growing, or it's squeeze profits and find cheaper alternatives.
Right.
And
Right.
that's what's happening in our space at the bigger company level through outsourcing, through not yet AI, but you guys don't think that's coming? That's coming next decade.
For sure.
So I think this changing before our very eyes, and it's not just research.
Agreed, very much agreed. And I think too, with the onset, of AI, I think that that's going to coincide very closely as the gig economy grows, right? And so I think a big challenge is remaining educated, right, as these technological advances occur, which is difficult. I remember having a conversation with a software engineer probably about 10 years ago, and him highlighting that just staying up to date with the fast shifts, advancements in technology is a full-time job in itself, right? So being careful, just always carving out time every week to make sure that you're spending 1 hour to read the highlights and overviews of technological advancements. And I think that the gig
Yeah.
economy certainly is coming, but it's going to be the folks in any industry who are keeping up with the technological advancements and incorporating that into any of your gig work, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it can be overwhelming to get started with that. But luckily, the LinkedIn Premier membership offers all of those courses. And so I've been spending a lot of time with those too.
Ah, really? I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
Oh, yeah, it's excellent. Yeah, we
Hmm.
have all these learning platforms. And, some of them really go in detail, and others are just, kind of high level, just get your wheels in motion, giving some general information, where to where to springboard to next for deeper insight. But yeah, as far as the gig economy and, starting our own consulting firms or different things of that nature, I definitely see a movement toward it. One of the things that I've been kind of keeping in my back pocket, and to go back and answer your question earlier about have I thought about starting a consulting firm on my project, the DoD research project that I was on at Dartmouth. So, that was an academic research project, but we
Hmm.
did spin off from there into two med tech startups, right? So there is a huge need for project managers, research project managers in the academic research space, right? And so I've thought often about starting just a small consulting company
Hmm.
where we would specialize in, being contracting to help academic research centers carry out their research, right? Because, these are people who are professors who are working to get tenure. So they've got a
Yeah.
handful of research projects, right? Again, limited resource kind of thing. And they just need someone to kind of oversee the day to day, right? PhD students who are jumping in to contribute kind of thing. And, it often ends up, being sort of like the Wild West
Yes.
academic centers, with research. And so I really see that growing. And also, what I've been seeing through my own work is that, the science officers in the funding organizations, so Department of Defense, the NIH, CDC, they're beginning to require that these academic research studies have a bucket carved out in budget and workflow for research project managers. So that's something new that's has come to the industry in the last 5, 6 years, which isn't really talked about
Absolutely.
very often, right?
No,
So yeah,
it's not. Yeah.
right. Mhm.
The issue with academia is like the sales cycle is very long. Um, but
Yeah,
there's no reason why you shouldn't do that while also having supplemental income from the private industry companies
oh
that
sure.
need similar help. And the good, like
Sure.
you're ideal to be a consultant contractor with like you have a wide variety of experience so you can draw upon even Oculus like you've done VR. Do you know there's like companies working on informed consent avatars for patients to consent, like e-consent?
I
I
did
mean,
not know that. I did
there's
not know
they're
that.
working on crazy stuff
Wow.
like and
Wow.
you're qualified for that too. Like even the most obscure things you're qualified for.
Well, I say I have familiarity with it certainly, but
Yeah.
definitely was not the software engineers or the folks who were creating the
Well,
technology,
yeah,
but
but these guys
it
are
was amazing
flying
to work with
blind.
them.
Well, when you're talking about your tech experience plus your coordinating experience plus your like director level experience at sponsors and managing
Mhm.
vendors and CROs,
Mhm. And
like
a lot of schools drop out. So
in
I'm
the
really
land of the
contracts and
blind,
regulations. Yeah. Yeah.
listen, one of my favorite quotes of all time, in the land of the blind, he with one eye is king. Like there's these companies are all flying blind, in my opinion.
I agree in a large way. I'm super super passionate, yeah, about operations and efficiencies, and
Yeah.
yeah, we've
We're gonna
we've
post on your group. Like, let's go to the group real quick because
yeah,
it's only been 2 days. You have 135 members, hopefully more after this. We'll
yeah,
probably post that QA intern slash could turn into a paid part-time gig opportunity for people to apply and just start doing something while they look for other work.
very appreciated.
w- I will put that on there. What are the some of the stories you've been hearing from the people and, like where are they at as far as what have they tried to do so far?
Yeah. So I'm gonna speak for the people who have been unemployed for 6+ months, right?
Okay.
So to gauge from there.
Okay.
Um, All right. So in terms of, the financial scare, yeah, people are behind on mortgages. Some cars have been repossessed. Utilities have been shut off, phone plans turned off. So that's the very real. And I know that we think that there are assistance programs out there, but there really aren't. There really aren't. I mean, thank goodness the food stamp program is something that exists, medical assistance, but beyond that, people who've had utility shut off notices and they think that they can go to an agency to, it genuinely is not as abundant as we all think, as I once thought even before
Right.
this. So anyhow, they're doing the same thing, right? They're on LinkedIn, they're doing the networking, they're posting the open to work, they're reaching out to hiring managers directly, they're getting in contact with old colleagues, so they're doing the whole gamut of what we're told to do, what we believe we're supposed to do when unemployed. Bottom line, it's not working. There are a couple of folks in our group who have since taken your advice, since being laid off, and not taken your advice, excuse me, but what you mentioned,
Mm.
they have started their own companies since being laid off. Hard to get off the ground, right?
Yep.
And again, that's a risk too, right? So you want to get a company off the ground, that it's something that's needed, but we all know how much work it is to get something off the ground. Not streaming any income from it. You still have to carve out time to send out resumes, work the side gigs that are paying you, kind of thing. But yeah, that's pretty much what everyone that I've spoken with, which is almost 200 at this point. That's been their experience. And then two, there is some stigma around reaching out to ex-colleagues. I've talked with some people who have prior colleagues that they've maintained relationships with, but they do feel very uncomfortable discussing the dynamics of the layoff, right? So you kind of lose some support in that area, right? So we're trying to create a shift away from that people just don't need to be afraid to discuss, because and again, it's not that these companies are bad either, right? I mean, things are happening. And so yeah, in terms of the group, the people who have already joined the group, it's amazing seeing what their qualifications are. But again, it brings it back to, that's why we're just asking hiring managers and recruiters, obviously the bottom line is no one is asking to be offered a position or even offered an interview for something that they're not qualified for, right? We are not
Right.
taking the easy way out here. Again, it's
I
just
saw
that,
your rules here too. You posted rules
yeah,
yesterday. No one in this group is seeking to be offered a position for which we are not qualified. We are not attempting to circumvent the thorough vetting and interview process required. We are not trying to take jobs from others. However,
right.
for those of us who have been unemployed for over 6 months, time is running out. We understand that hiring managers and recruiters very demanding and challenging roles. And then you put your goals here. So it's like your mission statement for the group.
Yeah. And I want, everyone that's kind of joining the group and the movement, all of those of us who are unemployed, to respect the process, right? To remain patient, that the hiring managers who are coming forward to say, hey, I'm going to prioritize our unemployed colleagues for first shot at interviews, hoping that will offer the same support by way of remaining patient through the process, not blowing up inboxes. If a hiring manager does come to the group to say, hey, I've got this open position, send me your resume directly. All of the professionals in our group, I'm certain know better than to send a resume for a position that they're not qualified
Yeah.
for and
Or just
expect
like a
that.
lie on the resume, which,
Exactly,
yeah.
right. So it's gonna take some good faith, right? Like on both parts. I mean, that hiring managers who are already so busy are taking the time to even reach out further, right, to our group. But then our group, maintaining that level of professionalism, and which everyone that I've seen in our group and had discussions with, I'm sure that they're, very much, on board with
Would you
that.
say, just be as objective as you can, would you say people that are finding it difficult to even land an interview in 6 months or more doing something wrong?
In terms of their job search strategy, probably.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because I did it a
Mhm.
lot. It probably took me about 4 months to realize where I was messing up. So number one, quick apply, fast apply on LinkedIn. Nah, don't even, it's too
Crap.
good to be true,
If
right?
it's easy, if it's that easy, then everyone else is doing it.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's number one. Don't even utilize it. If it's a position that you're interested in, check it out, then just go directly to the company's website, right?
This is not sponsored by LinkedIn, obviously.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And then finding too, that it is very true that there are a lot of ghost positions out there, right? So we're spending our time applying to these positions through the job portals that actually don't exist or that were filled a month ago, 3 months ago, right? By the,
Unwatered gardens, or
that's
people forgot
right.
to pull the weeds.
Totally,
Yeah.
right.
Hmm.
Yeah. So that's something that I was doing wrong that I think delayed some things, right?
Wow.
A
Wow.
lot of hard lessons through this, truly.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and so if you're not going directly to the company, if you're not going to Fierce Biotech, seeing who's funded, checking out the companies who've needed to lay people off, right? And you're not going directly to their websites or reaching out to the hiring managers directly with, consideration for their time, obviously. Anything that you're doing outside of that realm, or putting yourself out there for consulting roles or whatever, networking with colleagues that you already know. If you're not doing those things, anything outside of that, it's wrong.
Yeah.
Like put it shortly, right? So
I
yeah.
think I agree. I would go as far as not even applying to CROs right now. Like the big ones, the household name ones. There's
Yeah.
small ones that you should maybe apply to. The rule I just came up with this recently. It's like a theory. The only companies hiring are the ones that are actually growing like rapidly year over year.
Yeah.
It's not the ones that have been stagnant for years. Those are the ones squeezing profits. It's the ones growing rapidly year over year. You usually find those at the small ends of the extremes of the smaller sites you've never heard of, the smaller companies you've never heard of.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
almost like if you heard the name of the company, it's not worth applying for at the state that we're in right now.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and most people, what do? They do the opposite. They're like, oh, IKEA, let me apply there. Well, they just laid off like, well, I don't know if it's IKEA, but PPD or whatever,
Mhm.
30% of their staff going to Latin America now. So unless you're in
Yeah.
Latin America, I mean, maybe there it's good. Maybe there you got to do that strategy, apply to all those
Mhm.
places. But here you got to think differently. Here in the U.S., is it
Yeah.
mostly U.S. people in the group?
So far, yeah, but we do have a couple of people overseas, other
Mhm.
countries who, a few that I've spoken with that go back and forth between country of origin and, their US where they also have residency. Yeah. So,
That's
but
the
yeah, I
other
mean,
thing, man. It's this globalization.
yeah.
It sounds so good, and then when it hits home, it's like, well, wait a minute. We signed up for this, like
Yeah,
a world
right,
without borders.
right.
Well,
Yeah,
now they're not getting paid the same, and they
right,
have my skill set, and they know
right.
English, and they're in
Mhm.
the same time zone. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it's starting to look bad, for
totally. Yeah. And here's the thing, right? So like I'm a humanist and well, I to call myself a capitalist right now, but so it's like I love opportunity for everyone, right? I told you that I just lived
yeah,
in Mexico for a year and a half, so I love my Latin American friends and family, and I'm so happy to see some opportunity
me
go
too.
that way,
It's like
right?
bittersweet because you're like,
It
I know
is,
people there,
yeah,
like, man, you just got promoted. That's awesome. And then over here, it's like,
yeah.
I lost the job.
It, Right, right. So it's so bittersweet, truly.
Hmm.
But hey, something, the thing about it is keeping the focus on what is hitting our industry right now, why we're sort of crashing in the moment. There's so much more to focus on there too, right? So it's like while
Yeah.
it makes us a little panic stricken that some of these CRO jobs have been outsourced to Latin America. We've got to look at the rest of it too, where it's like, some of these companies, their patents just became public. They just expired, right?
And
So
Cliff, yeah.
right, right. So that's taken away funding. And then, as we were pouring through COVID research, a lot of our federal funding agencies that many rely on, really had to extend themselves to kick off COVID research needed at the time. And, then overextending ourselves to supplement what was happening during COVID and all of the job losses at that point. I mean, so yeah, we saw this coming, right? I mean,
Well,
now
it
that
boils down to, like, not to get into politics, and then I'm gonna say a few things about you in particular that I like. There's no parties. I think it's clear, like, there are the elites and everyone else.
Mhm.
And I don't care what party you're at, right? I've always voted independent. I'm not, I could go either way. It's clear to me these decisions are not made with the workforce's best interest,
That's right.
regardless of where you're at.
Yeah.
And it's time to be sovereign. I've been calling it sovereign. I think everyone should read this book, The Sovereign Individual.
Oh yeah, I've heard of you. Yeah, mentioning that.
It
Yeah.
got me thinking, like, and I'm a business owner, so I'm like fortunate
Uh-huh.
enough to, well, you call it fortunate or unfortunate sometimes, but you're forced to think this way. And I think a lot of
Yeah.
job seekers, without them agreeing to play this game, are forced to play this game that be previously only entrepreneurs took on
That's
this kind of risk. But now
right.
everyone else who didn't sign up for this, hey, I just want to be an employee. Well, the market doesn't care what you want to be. You are
That's right.
self like contained entity,
Yeah.
whether you like it or not. And no company is going to take care of you.
Right, right. Yeah. I mean, being part of the bigger picture, in helping a company forge ahead for their goals, right? For the greater cause of humanity, bringing cures and treatments to the people that need them. Excellent work, something that I will absolutely continue doing. But like you said, the gig economy is going to keep going. Now is the time more than ever to ensure that we've got passive sources of income. We've
Yeah.
got to diversify. Like this ain't your grandpa's 401k
No.
or yeah, right. And so yeah, we really need to consider that.
But the
Yeah.
positive stuff, and here's the things I like about you. Charlie Munger said one of the worst things you can have,
Mm,
I see none of that in you. I do see some of that in a lot of unemployed, and I understand. I'm empathetic. Like, I wish I could hire everybody. You don't have an ounce of that in you. Matter of fact, you go the other way, created this group, which is actually leveraging the way things are headed. Like, you're building the human part, connecting people, and
yeah.
through reciprocity, you'll eventually get something for yourself too, and
I
hopefully for everyone
appreciate
else.
that. I appreciate that. But I'm going to tell you this, and I would really love for everyone to keep this in mind. Going through the process of a layoff has very much has similar stages to that of grief, like how,
Mm.
getting grief has stages. March of 2024 was my month of self-pity. I'm
Wow.
telling you, it was my month of self-pity,
What was
right?
that like? Like, what did you end up doing? Like, in your own head, you're just like what was that like?
Feelings of indignance, right? But this was before I was gaining a full understanding of like what's really going on in the market, what all these factors at play are, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, feeling some indignance, some anger. I worked so hard to get here, and then what's wrong with me? Look at this resume. This must be terrible. No one's calling me.
Mm.
Yeah, so pure honesty. It was a full month of self-pity, and then it was like, okay, that's enough. That's enough of this, right?
But what
But
made you do that versus continue that? And it would be worse now in July.
what made me do that, you mean stepping away from
Yeah,
feeling that?
like I think that's normal, like
Mhm.
grieving, but some people don't get out of that for
Oh,
years.
man, listen, you've got to fight it. I mean, listen, so one of my favorite quotes, and this is what I always told my children growing up, motivation doesn't always come easy. Sometimes you've got to chase it with a baseball bat, right?
Ah, I
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. And
Wow.
it's
Wow.
you know,
Every day's a battle.
every day is a battle, and you just got to continue asking. And this is another one I live by, man. We've all got the same 24 hours in a day. We may not all have the same access to opportunity, right? And that does make it hard. That's a confounding factor, but we do all have the same 24 hours in a day. And if we can wake up and put 2 feet on the floor, we can move mountains. And I've done it
Mm.
I've done it, and I believe it. And this isn't my first rodeo about to lose everything, believe me. I've been there, done that. And but that's one of the things, right? I mean, once you've been through adversity,
Makes it could either make or break you.
absolutely, but it really doesn't have to break you. But again, that's why, hey,
Wow.
schedule your time, right? That's another thing. There's
Wow.
this adage, this little story about a science student, or let's, even a business owner or whatever. And he's observing, this person sitting with all of his physics books in the library. And he's there with his books, and then all of a sudden he sees the kid like sit back and just like start crying and whatever, and then abruptly after 5 minutes sits right back up and grabs his pen and keeps going. What's going on
Hmm.
here? He's scheduling his mental breakdown, right?
It's
Schedule
important to
your
do. I think
right,
it's a
right.
skill you've got to learn.
It
Like
is, yeah. But
getting up from, I mean, I'm fortunate now. I have to work on maintaining that. I can't get complacent, but the world's competitive. But I've had, you know, 2012, I've as a site owner on the brink of losing it all, and I've been through, I've never been laid off, but that's my equivalent to it.
oh, definitely.
And so I can empathize with the people in the group. You just gotta get through it. It's either gonna make or break you. Don't let it break you. That's it.
Right. And you've just got to keep fighting for what inspires you. So that was another one of the things that I realized as I'm going through this. And so I have more time to spend, with this thing that interests me or that thing that interests me. And then, as part of the feelings of depression, oh, I'm not interested in this anymore. I'm not interested in that.
Mm,
I had to keep fighting to find the things, the
yeah,
topics that inspire me. Right.
yeah.
I mean, so I started learning weather patterns. That was another thing I started doing in my free time, right? So I'm taking these courses in being a trained storm spotter, looking at the clouds, learning all this stuff about weather patterns, and
Multidisciplinary approach. Charlie Munger would agree with you. He'd applaud you right now. Rest in peace,
there's
Charlie Munger. You know what got
something,
me through it? Not so
yeah,
much the fighting, because I've been fighting so long.
you have,
And I'm not religious, but during that time, one of my favorite quotes, I don't have any tattoos, but if I would put that one right here. This too shall pass. Because that
yeah,
applies, by the way, in the good and bad times. If like right now, I'm in good times with my site, but my businesses are good. But if I would look down and remember, like, it's not gonna be like this forever. Like, I'm gonna have
right,
more adversity in my life.
yeah,
And then when I'm in the bad times, like, it's not gonna be like this forever. If I could
totally.
glimpse from 2012 to 2024, I would have been like, all right, this is worth continuing. Like, it's
Yeah,
worth
yeah.
fighting. And it's really that phrase that, for me, helps me get through a lot. And I don't know if that everyone's got to find their own thing, but for me, that one's powerful.
So yeah, I to put a little humorous spin on it, another one of my favorites, and what I've offered even as words of comfort to people, this too shall pass. It may pass like a kidney stone, but it will
Yeah,
pass.
it will
You know?
pass.
Yeah.
And sometimes you need that kidney
Yeah.
stone, like just get it out, you know?
Right, right. And
Other times it
natural law,
passes like
man.
slowly.
Yeah, right, right. But natural law, right, is that nothing is permanent.
Mm-mm,
That's something that keeps me
mm-mm.
going too. And so, just as much as we can bet that happiness is not going to last forever,
Yep,
uninterrupted,
yep.
neither are these painful moments. I mean, it sucks, right? Like we're all out here, well, geez, I hope I don't lose everything before it gets better again. But man, even so, it will get better again.
Mm.
I really feel for the people who are now having delays in, fueling their retirement and, that kind. I mean, this isn't just
Yep.
about, oh, I can't go on vacation or oh, I can't. I mean, these are
No,
very
that's
real.
serious stuff. Like keep your
Yeah.
lights on type of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. So
Anything you can do to help, anything we can do to help Guru Nation can help. Your group. I'm gonna have a link to it right here. Everyone
appreciate
go follow Alicia. Her LinkedIn's underneath, and then the clinical research professional open to work hashtag open to work group, which is brand new. Already has 136 members.
it.
Wait, let me refresh. 137, and this is
Nice.
not live, so no one knows we're talking right now. It's growing, and I think we just little by little like help one person at a time.
Yeah.
You have your tribe now. Members of your tribe are there, and everyone's job is to help each other out too.
Yeah, and I think that, this isn't just for us in the present, right? I mean, this is for people even that are going to find themselves in this, in the
Mm.
future. I mean, this is going to continue cycling, right? And so just being there with open arms and just again trying to just forge a slight paradigm shift, right? With our industry being such a strong community, and the work that we do and how we
Yeah.
collaborate to achieve the goals within, within that, just taking it one little step further and just remaining open for maybe, prioritizing 10 of the resumes or applications that you receive to be from individuals who are unemployed, who are currently seeking work, right? But again, bottom line is
Yeah.
businesses have got to remain functioning. We're not asking anyone to hire candidates that aren't qualified. We're just asking that, they shift, provide a little bit of focus, hold some space for their unemployed, excuse me,
Mhm.
candidates.
Well, you're doing great work. It's
Thanks.
easy to do good stuff when times are good, but when times are tough and you're still doing it, that says a lot about you, Alicia. So thank you
Thanks.
for coming on. I really appreciate it. I'm sure the community, your brand new community, will be growing, fortunately and unfortunately. I don't think anyone wants to find themselves in that group. I'm
No,
in there,
no one wants to be in my group.
but join nonetheless. And if you're a site owner, get in there. There might be some good talent for you guys and gals out there. Um, and
Yeah.
connect with Alicia. Everybody go connect.
And Dan, thank you so much for everything that you've done for this community. I didn't mention it, but you actually were one of the first people that helped me learn how to break into the clinical research industry. So
Oh,
I've
wow.
for a
Thank you.
long time. I am honored to be on, speaking with you. Not so much for this reason. I wish it were different,
Yeah.
but we'll touch base again for sure on bigger
Oh, for
and
sure. We'll do follow-ups. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Thank you so
more
much for
lucrative
that.
things. Yeah.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Dan.
Thank you
You
so
do a
much,
lot for
Alicia.
all
We
of
will
us.
stay in touch. Guru Nation, go connect right now. Bye-bye.